Hi, and welcome back to my video series where I'm working through the challenges in my book, The C# Player's Guide. This week we are on to the ninth and final challenge that is the core game for the final battle, where we've been building this like turn-based combat simulator for like an RPG type game. And so far, the entire game has been done by having the computer just play against itself. It decides all the attacks and all the actions, and now we're going to need the human make choices. And this is and again, these 200 experience points I feel like undersells it. I especially on the boss battles, I wish in retrospect almost every single one of them probably should have been double the XP, because I think that shows better the size of this. This is not just a trivial thing. However, we have done a fair bit of console Windows stuff throughout this book. That's been the area we've been working. So none of this should be crazy difficult. We just need some way to present to a player sitting in front of this console window their options. And this challenge doesn't demand that you do it in any particular way. It just demands that there's some way for a human to make a choice about what to do. And this is an example of what it could be. And I do want to point out here this line here, because this greatly simplifies the amount of work you need to do. It's acceptable for all attacks selected by the human to target the first or random target without allowing the player to pick one specifically. You can do that if you want. It's not required. Now, I know a lot of people are going to be like, "Oh, wow, that's the game. I want to be able to choose who I'm attacking. I want to be able to choose if I'm using an item. I want to be able to choose who I'm applying that item to, and so on." So um, I think before we are done with this challenge, I think we'll take that extra step and do that because I think people are wondering. But just so you know, that is not required, and and skipping that will definitely simplify what we're doing here. And then the other thing here is when the game starts, we want the user to choose from either player versus computer, which is kind of the default. The human in charge of the heroes, the computer in charge of the monsters. But also, I think we want to be able to support the model that we've had because it's really convenient to just let the game run for a while and do computer versus computer, and also human versus human. So that's kind of because we have shifted the burden of making a choice from the characters themselves to this like player concept. It will allow us the ability to put a different player in charge of each of the parties whenever and however we want. So we have the ability to put a human player in charge of the monster. So we can have two humans battle it out. Or um, even something like we could set up this game to run on a server and then have a player, a totally new type of player that isn't the computer AI player or the console player. We could get instructions across the network and we could build a whole separate client on the network that makes requests and sees what's going on here. So we're not going to build a network player, but it's conceptually possible that we could build all sorts of different types of players, and of course we could also build all sorts of different AIs to make different decisions, based on different rules or whatever it is. So we could compare how good the AIs are if we wanted and things like that. But because we've made that like player sort of abstraction, we have that player interface. It allows us to support this type of thing. It allows us to say, who do you want to run each of these different parties? So that's what we're doing here. There is a hint here, and I think we're gonna follow something somewhat like it. Like this has like my solution, which is in the online stuff, was to build a menu item record that holds information about the option. So it's got the description. So it's got this text here, it's got this number, and it's got the actual action to run. And then I just build like, let's look around and see what all of the different options are. And then let's look at all the different options, and then we will present them to the user, allow them to pick one, and then just go run that action. So I think that's the strategy we're going to apply at least initially. But yeah, so step number one here. Well, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm gonna just hard code this new console player, and this doesn't exist yet, but I'm going to come down here by this computer AI player, and I'm going to make a similar one here. So public class console player. They are a player. And then the main method that we need to implement, action, is take turn, and given we'll get this well, yeah, so we just have to implement this method, and as long as we do, then we should be good. So for example, and this could be implemented in any way we want. So for example, we could say console.read key equals key equals console key dot a. If that return new attack action for the character and the character's basic attack, standard attack, I keep saying. And now this is interesting because it would sure be nice to have this code. For the next few seconds, I'm gonna just do that. Right, I'm missing something here. What am I missing? Character, find targets, character battle. There we go. Wasn't that I was missing something? And then return new rest action. All right. So with the way that we got it set up, that actually, I think, honestly, technically checks the boxes. I did it right. What's your name? Okay, it is waiting for me to enter something, and if I push a key, it will do nothing. And if I push the secret key A, it'll attack. So now I can just sit here and attack. Now, this is terrible user experience, but it did work. And like I said, technically speaking, it's terrible, but technically speaking, we've done kind of the basics. We're supposed to allow the player to choose whether to do an attack or to do nothing. And yeah, so like I said, technically we're there. We can definitely flesh this out a whole lot more. So for example, we can print out that menu. We're just going to kind of evolve this a little at a time. Console.WriteLine 1 standard attack punch. Console.WriteLine 2 rest. The book calls it do nothing, but console.write what do you want to do? And then if we change this to D1, that's it's the one key, but it's on the number bar instead of dot num. I think that's numpad 1. All right, so it's already a whole lot better than it was. Wait, what? I pushed 1. I'm getting rested. What am I doing wrong here? Numpad 1. I didn't. I forgot that I had changed that. There. Now I'm getting punch. Um, so I actually don't want to do console.read key. I could do that to consume it. That would, if I'm going to do the read key thing where you just let people type in a number, then maybe I want to like I could do it that way. Um, I don't think I want to do it. So yeah, like I said, that flavor is actually working pretty well. Like the formatting looks good, and if I push 1, I get the standard attack, and if I push 2, then then I get resting. If I push P or A, then I get resting. Um, so maybe I would want to handle that, and of course, maybe what I want to do here, if I'm going to go down that path, maybe what I want to do is um, check for there, check for both of them. I'm using pattern matching there with the is. So now if I push the 1 on the like the bar, now I get the same attack. So um so again, like I say, I think I do want to use the style that is in the book where you like you console.read line and then do convert.to in 32. And then just do if choice equals 1, else if choice equals 2, return that, else like we if okay, yeah, so if we picked 1 or 2, then we're good. So we could do something like this, while true. So if we like, what do you want to do? If we enter in choice 1, we do an attack. We do choice 2, we do that. Otherwise, we do else console.write line. That was, I did not, I don't know, I did not understand that choice. Try again. Something like that. Like that, again, we're now a whole lot closer to something meaningful here. Yeah, we should. So we're at a point in the book where we should know how to deal with this, and we should deal with this. And I think the better choice here is int dot. Well, let's do it this way. Int dot try parse text console dot read line and out int choice. And now we should say if we've only if we succeeded. Should we do these? There. I think that's better. So we're going to try to parse that input. And then if the choice is, if this fails to parse, so if they enter in like what I just did, which I don't remember what I pushed, but it was a letter. If I push a letter, then this will fail and it'll come down to here. If it parses correctly, it'll attempt to like check these. If it's choice 1, do this. If it's choice 2, do this. And then And if we don't return an action immediately, then we also leave this if and come down here and run this. So either way, if we didn't type in like the number 1 or 2, then we're going to end up down here. So that should fix my garbage input that I had. Which it looks like it's doing. Okay, so again, like I said, we're actually at a pretty good place here, and if you wanted to stop here, you could. I'm going to keep going because I feel like we can do a lot better in terms of building a system that will support more options in the future. Right now, it's just like this fixed list. Well, and actually, one of the problems we've got is, so I guess we're not technically done. We would have to do that at a minimum, because not everybody's standard attack is punch. And so if we switched it so that if we switched it so let's do that for the moment, and we'll come back to this. The one thing that we do definitely need to do in order to complete this challenge is we need to say, we need to do something like console.writeLine. Console.writeLine. So if we failed, and I'm going to just do something here. If they gave us garbage, I'm going to just do the human versus computer. And then, all right, so we'll clean this up a little bit more too in a minute. But right now, all we're doing is we're displaying this little menu, and then we're giving them the option to pick a choice. And then in this case, so if we fail to parse, then I'm going to set this same variable. And that might be a little confusing for people. So like let me simplify this a little bit. Instead of declaring it here, which I like doing, if I put it here, now it makes a little more sense. Because it's the same thing. Yeah, so we will try and parse it from here. And if that succeeds, then we're done. If it fails, then we'll enter in this if statement. I don't know if this is any better for people. We'll enter in this if statement and assign it a value of 2, which is human versus computer. So at this point, we know that this choice will be, well, I was gonna say, we know it's a number, but it might have been 2000. So what we should do is we should say, and choice is greater than or equal to 1, and choice is less than or equal to 3. So if they, hang on, I want to make sure I get this not wrapped around it, the whole thing. If try parse and the choice we get is at least 1 and no more than 3. So if it's not all of those things, then we're going to just pick 2 by default. So if we enter in garbage in this case rather than asking again, which actually would be a very reasonable thing to do, instead of asking again, we are going to let's just pick for them. And I think that's okay for right now. So now at this point we do have a choice, and now we just need to set up these based on the game mode. So I'm gonna do a choice. So I'm gonna use a switch expression here, and this is gonna be I'm kind of bringing together a bunch of things here. So this is I player P1, I player P2 equals P1, P2. So if we did have a 1, then let's see, that was human versus human. So new console player. And this is, combining patterns, and I'm combining tuples. Yeah, it's not liking this, and that's because it can't figure out what type all this is. Because really, the type of this is a tuple of I player and I player. Except I'm casting to that. Lots of parentheses. And I could put that on everything, but apparently I don't need to. Anyway, so the computer's having a hard time figuring out without that, it's having a hard time figuring out what type is this, because it looks like it could be a tuple of console player, but then down here, like, it changes. This is console player and computer AI player, and this is computer AI player and computer AI player. And in order for this expression to have a type, a known type, it has to be able to figure out what is the type here, and it can't because there's no obvious clues about which of these it's supposed to be. By putting this in here, and again, lots of parentheses, this is a tuple type, a tuple of I player and I player, and then these parentheses, this here and this, is a casting operator. So it says cast this to the type. It's a two tuple of I player and I player, and then it says, okay, this is a tuple of I player and I player. After that, it says I can make that work for this and for this, and so it just it's good enough with just the one cast. I kind of hate this. It's just it's kind of a lot going on, and maybe the thing, like, let's consider our options here. So we'll leave this here for the moment, and let's consider the alternatives. We could say I player equal P1 equals. So we just do, so if basically we've got a human if choice is 1 or choice is 2. So if it's either of those, then new console player. Otherwise, that needs to be a question mark. Otherwise, then this is a new computer AI player. And I player P2 equals, so this was player 2 is a human player equals 1. Then it's a new console player and a new computer AI player. I kind of like that better, just because it doesn't have like that was combining switches, patterns. I mean, those would go together a lot, but switches, patterns, tuples, casting, like it ended up with a single statement that had a whole lot going on. So I'm gonna leave it this way. So we're just looking back up here. Like if it's choice one, then we know it's a human and a human. If it's choice two, then we know it's a human and a computer. So we know it's a human player in the first two options, and otherwise it's a computer player. And player two is a human in the first option and a computer player in the other options. So now we actually have the option to run this, and it should give us. So we can do computer versus computer, and it should just go nuts running. Or restart this. Or we can do human versus human. Standard attack. Tog used punch. It's skeleton's turn. Standard attack. Skeleton used bone crunch. So like you can see, like we can set this up to go any way we want it to go. And I like that. I think that's pretty good. I am, however, seeing some duplication here that maybe we can clean up. So at any rate, like we could leave it at that. We could say, do a standard attack and then and or rest and then just let them pick and then anyway, I like that. I think seems like it's working well enough. However, I will say that like this, like displaying this menu and like this right here, like those are the same thing. There's a question, there's some options. It expects to to make a choice. And maybe we can make it so that, maybe we can make a method that just handles that for us so we can get rid of some of that duplication. So let's, I like maybe this, like we're kind of building this like this colored console. In this case, it isn't like, I don't know. We named it colored console. I want to add some stuff that's like for menu selection, and maybe we don't want to call it a colored, like that's no longer about just colored console. So maybe what we're really trying to build here is like a better console, an extra most bestest console, an uber console. So I'm gonna rename it to that, and then what we'll do is we will do this. So public static void prompt with menu, and we will, let's see, string question string options. And then I'm going to come grab a copy of some of this code here to start generalizing it. We'll come back to that in a sec. So what we will do here is we'll say for int index equals 0, index is less than options dot length. So just iterate through this list. We'll do console dot write line. So we'll do some string interpolation. So we want index +1, and then a dash, and then options at that index. console dot. Hmm. I don't need that stuff. So yeah, so if we succeed in parsing and the choice is greater than or equal to 1 and the choice is less than or equal to the total number of options, then return choice. That's good other than an error. So if that's not true, then we're in an error state. So console.write line did not understand that. Try again. I just need to throw this in the loop. Well, true. All right, so I've got that little function that does some pretty basic but interesting stuff. And now we can just say, now I can remove a lot of this. I think at this point I can just remove this. Technically, I don't even need that because it'll either come in here and do this or it won't, in which case I want to do that. And I should be able to remove this while true here as well because this should not return until we get a valid result. So the output's going to be a little bit different than what's in the book, but that's fine. It doesn't have to be the same. What do you want skeleton to do? Rest. What do you want Hog to do? 4. I didn't understand that. Try again. What do you want Hog to do? That seems, I mean, I'm just pushing buttons here, but that seems pretty I'm not sure there's a way to break this, so I think we've generally covered our cases. And now we have this thing where it's, you know, it's optional. And now that we've done that, we could come back up here and we could handle this better too. So we could do we'll just use that, which allows us to clean up all of this stuff. And that also allows us to pick up for free. Now it's going to force us, like if we enter in garbage for that, it's going to, unlike before where it, where it would just use the to option. Now we like get this for free because we wrote the one method that did it and we're just reusing it. So that is a pretty good improvement. There is one other thing that I think we can do here, and that is in that thing there was standard attack. Like what we can do here is we can do $sign over here. Now we can get character dot standard attack dot name. So now when we run this, now it says punch here, and it should say bone crunch for the skeleton. And it says unraveling for that guy. Okay, yeah. So I think we've checked all the boxes. We actually, I thought we'd maybe go down that path of that hint, um, and we kind of haven't yet. This just has like a fixed list of, you know, I'm gonna wrap these lines just a little bit differently to see that. Like though, like we just have this fixed list of choices, and I didn't ever make like a menu item to like capture that. But the one thing that might be nice is to be able to pick the target. And like there's a couple of ways that we could do this. One thing we could do is this right here actually doesn't need to be. This can be an I read only. I'm picking stuff that probably isn't really covered in the book, but an I read only list is a collection that allows you to access it by index. That's what the list gets you. But through this interface, it doesn't have the ability to modify it. And this prompt with menu has no need to modify it. So it's fine. And then it's count instead of length. So that's another interesting type. But this could have been a list if we wanted to, or an I list. And we'd be getting the same benefit. So I have to change it to count instead of length. Now, hiding some of the stuff, and really my solution should be to shift a lot of this out to other files. Yeah, so now we actually have a little more flexibility. This happens to be a string array, but we could do list of string. and just use that, and then pass in options. And then instead of making this all at the beginning, I'm going to do it this way because of how we're going to modify it in a minute. Okay, so at this point, everything should still be the same as it was, like functionally equivalent, but we've made it. Seems good. This should be functionally the same as what we had before, only now we have the option right in here of doing something like for index equals 0, index is less than. Let's see, I want this find targets moved up. That's not what I wanted. But what I want is maybe something like punch. Something like that. Now the catch here is that we could have many options here. So we could say if choice does not equal options dot length count -1. So if it's not the last one, standard attack targets at index this is going in all sorts of weird pathways, but this should work. Punch skeleton. Nope, didn't work. That should not be -1 because this is going to give us like a 1, 2, 3, not a 0, 1, 2. Try that one more time. Skeleton use rest. Skeleton rested. Okay. So now if we get to, I guess I want to punch. There. So now I've got options 1 and 2 to punch the 2 different skeletons. And now I can go after that second skeleton. Oh, punch. Yeah. I don't want that to be punch. I want that to be character dot standard attack dot name. Like that works okay, but I don't love it. I think what I want to do is something more like this. Attack name with that. I think that's what I want to do. Let's try that again. So we just eliminated the second skeleton. And now, oh, yeah, now, let's see. Yeah, now there's only one attack in there. So basically I'm just squishing everything up into like the top level menu. And like that. Okay, so with that, like we've like we did make it so that now we can choose who we attack, which is kind of nice. And like I said, the book doesn't actually demand that. We've just gone down that path here anyway. I will say though that there's a couple of things I'd like. The suggestion in the book of just having like a menu item, um, I kind of like that option, and maybe like so to maybe have something like this that is like a public. So rather than just having a list of strings, like I wonder about having something like this where it's public record menu option. I think I called that menu item the other thing, but I think I'm given the context here. We've got options. I'm going to call it menu option. So, and then to have a string name and like I'm going to use generics. And I'm going to use T value. I'm going to capitalize this. Record names are usually capitalized. So I'm making a generic type so that I can use this in different places. So this could be a menu option that uses a string for the name. Maybe this is a description. And then like the value that's like underlying that behind it when you pick it. And then change this to a menu option of T. Ask. Come over here, prompt with menu, and then this will return not an int, but it'll return T. Not input choice. So this will say basically these menu options are going to give us some value that we're going to pick, and that value could be anything. That's why we're using generics here. Is we don't like in any specific context, it's going to be a specific set of choices. It could be an integer, or it could be, it could be actions, I action, like I action things, which I think is where we're headed with this, and that's kind of what the hint in the book talks about. But so there's these actions, and we're going to just supply the actions, and we're going to give the names that belong to each of the actions. So we'll display the number and the action, and then we're just going to return whatever the thing they chose, the value. And because of generics, we're going to be able to handle that regardless of what the type is. So that, and then instead of this being a list of string, this will be a list of menu option of I action. And then this needs to change too. This is the most complicated type we've probably actually seen here in general in the book, like in all these challenges that we've done. This is actually a really good place to say, let's just not type that out twice. But now here we need to create not, here we need to create not just a string, but we need to create the action. So I'm gonna skip this one. That one's more complicated, but I'm gonna skip that for a second and do new menu option of iAction and pass in new rest action. So basically I'm moving this code up to here. So we'll display this with rest, and if they pick it, then this is the thing that is behind that menu choice. So this is what we'll get. And then here we'll do a similar thing, and we'll have new menu option of iAttack, and we'll do new attack action character dot standard attack targets that index. What's going on? Let's see. So we've got, maybe for starters, some of my, like I just at a glance I don't know what's going on there. So first thing I'm going to do here is do a little bit of rearranging so that I can see this in pieces. Sometimes that like resolves it if I can just see it in parts, and other times it just makes it a lot clearer what's going on. Oh, I attack. That's not supposed to be I attack. It's supposed to be an I action. There. Okay. Now I could squish all that back down in there, but I'm not going to do that. And I like how that's set up. So that doesn't matter how many things we throw in here. We don't have to like compute like which thing was which. Again, we've just got the, oh, actually, was that suggesting a for each loop? Where to for each? I like that better. So we build out our little menu here of our possible actions, and then away we go. And again, like I said, this made it really, with this for each loop, we can just iterate through all the possible targets. If we're going to do that, we don't need to worry about that anymore. And maybe I'll just condense this just a little bit. So let's put a comment in here. Make a menu option for using standard attack on each opponent. All right, so we have kind of sort of used the hint in the book. Actually, I think we've mostly done it. It came out a little different this time, but I'm missing something. Oh, this. Yeah, so this thing needs. Yeah, we gotta rework this. This is gonna be a. So the simple thing we can do here is new menu option. And call this one. This code, actually, I think I would have to say got uglier. However, all right, well, that compiles now, and we should be able to run it. All right, let's see. So this is displaying the entire menu option, not just the text. Let's come back down here. I think that should fix it. That doesn't look very fixed, does it? Oh, that's not what I meant to do. Deconstruct dot description. Let's try that again. There we go. That's a lot better. Okay, so um yeah, so we actually have, I believe, at this point. Let's check. Honestly, we were done with like the basics of this forever ago. You can see though that like a lot of what we've had to do here in order to get all of the different let's see, I really want this. In order to get all of the different attacking specific things, this definitely made things a lot more complicated. Like we had to do a whole lot of stuff here just to support that. And later on, we're going to have the ability to, for example, not just attack a character, but like use an item on um any character, either a guy on your team or a guy on the other team. Like there's still like, and I don't know that this idea of just like let's just squish it all up to the very top level. I don't know if that's going to be wise, because like we could have the basic attack for each of the characters, and then we're gonna at some point we're gonna have like some advanced attacks that come from like equipment. So if you got a bow or something, then you'd have attack each of three characters with punch, and attack each of three characters with the bow, and then use a potion on each of your all the characters on your own team or the characters on the other team. And so there's just like that list could get very, very big. And I don't know if I don't like I don't know if just squishing it all up into the top level menu is necessarily the right solution. But maybe what we'll do for now is we will leave it this way for the moment, and when we add in other attack types, then we'll deal with being able to handle, because like I think the better solution would be like something like you start with your options are attack or rest. And then if you pick rest, then you're done. That's the action. If you pick attack, then it will say, here's your available attacks. What do you want to use? And then it will pick, and then it'll list Bone Crunch and whatever it is. It'll list your attacks, and you'll pick your attack. And then once you pick your attack, then they'll say, here's the targets. What do you want to do? And so this kind of like staged approach would be super awesome to have. And I don't think that's strictly required for what we're doing here. But that would be super cool. As I'm sitting here thinking about this, I do kind of wonder about maybe rolling some of this, not completely back, but maybe we forget maybe we do limit it for now. And then later on, there is a challenge. That's one of the expansions that says like add in something of your own, and maybe we do that there, just to keep things simple for now. So I'm kind of leaning towards that. So like I said, we've got the basic building blocks here, but maybe for the moment we'll do. And then here, this will be new attack option, new attack action character dot standard attack, and targets. I don't have that variable yet, so it keeps wanting to change stuff. But we'll put this back a little bit the way it was and do that. So we'll ditch the loop for the moment. Keep this a little bit simpler as we move forward. So we'll just always pick that first one. But one thing we will do here is we'll say, we'll check if targets.count is greater than 0, add that. Okay, so now, so like I said, we've kind of pulled back a little bit from that, from the full deal. Oh, oops! Apparently, I'm missing parentheses. So standard attack, and then yeah. So now in this case, it's like we don't get it. We've taken away the option to like pick and choose what it is. And like I said, I think maybe we will add that back in later if we get done with all of these challenges, and we haven't done that. Maybe ask about it on YouTube in a comment and say, hey, this, I don't see this. Is it in there? Because like I say, it's not strictly necessary. The challenge does not demand it. In fact, it specifically says you don't have to worry about that. But at the same time, I want to try and keep this somewhat manageable for the moment, and we can add in that complexity a bit later on. But I think we have a working solution for this player decides challenge. Spent a lot of time on it, more than I meant to, but just kind of working through the various possibilities and stuff. But we are, at this point, we are done with the base game, and we actually have pretty much everything we could want from this. I mean, we've got a system that is pretty easy to extend and add new stuff. It would be super easy to add new attack types. It'd be super easy to add new types of characters. It'd be super easy to add, new rounds. Our menu system is getting more robust. Like there's a lot that we've got accomplished here that would make it really easy to add in, to do combat between pretty much anything and pretty much anything with, and all we have to do is define new character types, new attack types, and so on. And we'll, as we go in the expansions, we're going to add in some extra capabilities. But we've like really we this on its own with no other changes is an extremely. I mean, like let's look at this. This is 300. Well, 335 lines of code, and I tend to write very dense. Like my code tends to be pretty dense. So you like your version, if you were going through and solving these, is likely to be quite a bit longer. I mean, even just stuff like I don't usually use curly braces unless it's necessary. I tend to do some stuff like this that like I just squish it all in there, and I think like some of that's a personal preference, and some of that is experience. As you get more experience, it's easier to look at a line of code like this and say, "Yeah, I know what that does." Um, so your code, even if you like literally did the same types of stuff as me, could have very easily ended up with um, significantly longer stuff. So, like I said, this is 336 lines of very dense code. And we have done some pretty impressive stuff here, honestly. So, I think we should be proud of ourselves for getting to this point. I do think one thing I want to do here, though, is I want to say, I want to. This is getting big enough that it's difficult to manage, and what I want to do is split this out into different files. Now, some people will do one file per type. I think especially if you've got a lot of types that are kind of big, I think that is a really good way to do it. But I think but I'm not I'm going to pull this out into separate files, but I'm not going to do one per each thing. I'm going to combine some stuff. And especially where like records have shown up, and it's just a number of things where it's just it doesn't always make sense to have to just separate everything into different files. There is definitely a place for it, um, and I won't fault anybody for kind of going down that path to have an unraveling.cs and a bonecrunch.cs and a punch.cs and an iattack.cs instead of just attacks.cs. Sometimes that makes it easier to find stuff, though I will say that like if I'm looking for stuff, my main tool is Control T, and then I'm looking for bone crunch. There it is, and I just hit that, and then it takes me right there. So like I'm not usually digging through here to find stuff. Anyway, let's see. Actually, I'm going to move these over to that file as well. So there's a time and a place for all of those options, and you can decide what you like. I am going to make, let's see, add. Same here. I'm going to take character all the way down to here. Just drop that in here. And then I'm going to, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this stuff. So the menu option and the Uber console into here. And then let's do, I don't know what just happened. Yeah, class 1. And take this I action interface, the rest action, the attack action, and move them all over to actions. And what's left? So battle, party, console player. These, however, I feel like there's enough meat to these, and they're only going to get bigger. I think I'm gonna put each of these in their own file. Why do these get their own files, the others don't? It's a good question. I think it's kind of just it's how I feel. Like honestly, that's mostly it. But I think the main reason is it's just like if I try and think about like why I'm feeling that way, it comes down to how big the files are, how big the types are. Because I like if you've got 6 types and they're all one line each, I don't really feel like those deserve 6 different files, especially when there's good ways to organize it. When it's like all of our attacks or all of our actions or all of our characters or whatever that those are. These player classes I expect to get a whole lot bigger than they are, as they have to make choices between like using potions and equipping gear and extra thing. Like I am expecting these to get more complicated. So and they're already kind of big, so that's a reason to put them in their own file. Same with his battle class. I'm expecting like uh, that's pretty big. This party class, that's not that big. Uh, I wonder about just sticking that in the battle class, the battle file. Maybe I will. It's kind of a supporting class for battle. Um, Actually, I like having the main class at the top if we're gonna go down that path. There. So now I've split this out into multiple files, not just a single file. And like I said, we could have done one for everything, and then we could have had a folder structure for the different actions, the different attacks, and so on. This is just like I said. This is kind of how I felt at the moment. Like I said, there are companies whose entire policy for C# stuff is every type goes in its own file unless it's at like a nested. If you have like a nested class, then obviously that goes inside the other thing. But yeah, there's a lot of places out there that get pretty aggressive about everything must go in its own file. I don't think that's a bad policy. And especially if you keep ending up in a situation where it's like, oh, everything's all in one file and it's way too much to handle, to try out that policy of separate everything, um, might might be might be good for you. There is a certain elegance to every type is in a file with the same matching name. It's in if there's a battle class, there's a battle.cs. If there's an iattack interface, there's an iattack.cs. There is a certain charm to that, and it's honestly what I've typically done for most of my time C# programming. But I think with just more encouragement for smaller types, and especially records and how small they can be. Enumerations are also often very small. Delegates are also very small. Like it kind of starts to make less sense to like just default everything must be in its own file, and to use that when it's appropriate, and to separate it, or to like combine several when there's good logic to combining them. Um, but yeah, so that let's call it a day here. This has gone on, like I said, a whole lot longer than I expected it to go, but we do have at this point we have the core game. It is all there. And next time we will look at the expansions. So, all right. I think that is everything for now. So I will see you guys later.